All right, Dolphins fans, it is our turn today in the 2023 NFL Draft. Day 2, Friday, second and third round. Obviously, we didn't have any scheduled first round picks. The Dolphins didn't trade up and try to land one of the running backs, one of the top tier offensive line in Thursday's opening round. But speaking of Thursday's opening round, wild times, all the trades, the run on wide receivers starting at pick 20, Will Levis falling, the Detroit Lions. The Detroit Lions taking my guys, Jahmyr, Gibbs, and Jack Campbell. Crazy first round. Loved it. Stinks the Dolphins didn't have a pick, but that's what we're here for today. We got these picks. We're going to be talking about targets for the Dolphins. Obviously, day 2, you get the second and third round. Dolphins scheduled to pick at 51 and 84. In today's video, I'm going to focus more so on guys that are likely to be targeted at that pick at 51. But my homework for you today, drop your targets. If you got any predictions, if you got any targets for rounds 2, 3, drop them in the comments. But if there's one nice thing that happened yesterday, it's the fact that only one tight end fell off the board, and that was Dalton Kincaid, who went to the Buffalo Bills. What does that mean? Well, that means if there was only one taken and there's this many available, there's only about 19, 20 picks before we pick at 51 here in today's second round. There can only be so many players taken off the board, which makes it more likely that one of these tight ends could potentially fall to the Dolphins at 51. And obviously, we're talking about a position here that, and before I get started, the players that I list here, the positions that I list, it's just kind of an overall encompassing list. It's not all just targets, but it's guys that could be available kind of as targets in that round at 51. But the fact that Mayer is available, the fact that Washington is available, when we went into the first round thinking there could be 3 first-round tight ends, Washington could come off the board, Kincaid, Mayer. But the fact that Mayer and Washington are still available, and then you've got the second rounders like Musgrave, like LaPorta. And now I did say that the Dolphins are a little bit cooler on a guy like Luke Musgrave. But man, if they wanted a tight end, if they wanted a guy that could potentially get meaningful snaps in year 1 at the position, Mayer, Washington, LaPorta. You still got a guy like Tucker Kraft available in the third round. Keep your eye on tight end for sure. Now let's talk about linebacker, because I talked about Jack Campbell going to the Alliance. He was my original prediction at 51 for the Dolphins. And you see I got listed Trenton Simpson and Drew Sanders, but I'm going to focus on Drew Sanders because I've been talking about it leading up to the draft that Vic Fangio has his guys. He's got targets that, hey, these are the guys I want, Chris Greer, Mike McDaniel. If it comes to fruition, these are the guys I want to land. Drew Sanders is allegedly one of those guys. And the fact that he's still available, I had him as a late first rounder. I know a lot of other people late first, early second. If he's available, that is definitely a name to keep an eye on as well. Yeah, we signed David Long, but hey, we don't know exactly what we're going to get out of Channing Tindall. We got Duke Riley as a filler. We got Channing Tindall ending up as a second-year guy. Who knows where that progression is going to lead? Don't rule out linebacker at this situation. And if Drew Sanders is on the board, don't rule him out at all. Now, I know a lot of viewers and Dolphins fans are like, you know what? We need offensive line. And it's not that I disagree, but I have been kind of all draft prep season saying, I just don't necessarily think the Dolphins go offensive line in rounds 2 or 3, because I do think they want to try to get some meaningful snaps from especially the second rounder, but potentially second and third rounder. And I just don't necessarily see any of these offensive linemen getting those meaningful snaps. Now, that doesn't mean they won't take them. And yeah, we absolutely need depth, and we could absolutely benefit from growing and developing one of these guys. But if there is a case for the Dolphins to still land an offensive lineman in rounds 2 or 3, it's the fact that Bergeron's still on the board. DeJuan Jones is still on the board. There was a lot of buzz about those guys being end of the first round picks. So it's just like the tight end situation. The more of those guys that are available, the better it is for the Dolphins if they want to target those positions. You'll see it clumped in there. I've got centers, I've got tackles, I've got guards. So there's really no rhyme or reason. It's, like I said, it's just kind of a list. But a guy like Osiris Torrance, a guard from Florida that ended up making it into round 2. The more guys, the more quality guys that last to round 2 gives more options for the Dolphins. So yeah, I'm still not saying that we're going to take a offensive lineman in rounds 2 or 3. I don't think I'm going to predict that either. I'm going to talk about my prediction at the end. But definitely still some quality names that are available. Now, here's a position that's kind of been sneaky all draft season because we got Wilkins and we want to rework that contract. We want to get him extended. We got Sealer, one of the most underrated players on the team in the league in general. We want to get him signed long-term as well. We got Raekwon Davis, who's pretty good, but I think he's entering the last year of his contract. Mike McDaniel loves defensive linemen. Vic Fangio loves defensive linemen. And if the Miami Dolphins, if a guy like Siaki Ika is on the board, if Gervon Dexter is on the board, there's a couple of other guys in that third round range as well. Don't be surprised. It is not a position of need. It is not a sexy position. The names aren't booming off the chart. It's not like these draft top tier prospects, but do not rule out the idea of the Dolphins taking an interior defensive lineman as well. The name I've got my eye on, speculation here, I'm not reporting anything, Siaki Ika. If he's available, keep your eye on him as a potential pick for the Dolphins as well. Let's talk about running backs. So we talked about it a little bit leading up to the draft that if the Dolphins were to trade up, Bijan Robinson, Jahmyr Gibbs could be likely targets. Obviously, Bijan goes, 8 to the Falcons. Gibbs with the surprise of the first round going 12 overall to the Detroit Lions. So it leaves two guys that, yes, Mike McDaniel does like, Zach Charbonnet, Devin Achane. And like I said, there's more guys. These are just kind of those guys that could potentially come off the board at 51. Now, if Mike McDaniel's love for these guys is enough, if they think he's best player available, maybe they go this route. However, I personally think that running back is probably the least likely at this point in time. I think after what we saw yesterday, I think we're just going to play the waiting game now on Dalvin Cook being released. And I think he's the preferred destination, being Miami for him. So we'll see how that goes, but I at least wanted to throw a couple of names out there at the position. We'll do cornerbacks and safeties before I get to my final little prediction here at the end. But cornerback is another one of those positions where it is a deep class. There's going to be some good guys available in rounds 2 and 3. And then we saw Joey Porter slip to the second round. Cam Smith, Keely Ringo, these guys that were kind of rumored, floated around end of the mid to end of first round being available. And it's like what we said about tight ends all over again. The more players that are available at these positions, kind of the better for the Dolphins. You could make a case that one of these cornerbacks that's going to be available at 51 could legit be best player available. And no, it's not a need. And no, they're likely not going to get these meaningful snaps. Ramsey, Howard, Kohu, Needham, Trill Williams, it's not a need. But if you look at the age of some of these guys, the top 2 especially, if you want to get the young blood in, if you want to get the next crew in, if you want to go best player available, keep your eye on cornerback as well. And this is not even close to a comprehensive list. Cornerback class is deep this year, especially in that second, third round range. Let's wrap it up with safeties because I saw Brian Branch being a first rounder. I still think he probably goes early second round, but keep your eye on Antonio Johnson as well because it's another position you look at and you don't really think it's a huge need. You signed Deshaun Elliott, 1-year deal. Brandon Jones, last year of his deal, and then Javon Holland being your main cogs at the position. But if Fangio, he likes his defensive linemen. He likes everyone. He's the defensive coordinator. That's his job to like it. But we know he loves those safeties as well. And Antonio Johnson is one of those guys to keep an eye on if the Dolphins were to see him kind of as that best player available, get him into a Fangio defense, let him learn for a year, and then maybe he can contribute meaningful snaps in 2024. All right. So I talked about a little bit doing like a prediction, and I'm not going to outright say this guy's going here at 51, but if I had a preference for the Miami Dolphins, at 51, it's tight end. I don't think Mayer's going to be there, but whether it's Washington, whether it's LaPorta, that's where my money would go right now. If all those tight ends, if we see a run on tight ends, which could very well happen, then I think we shift to that linebacker, and specifically Drew Sanders. So if Drew Sanders is there, if all the tight ends are gone, Drew Sanders is my guy. If all those guys are gone, then I think we go with that interior defensive lineman, whether it's Ika, whether it's Dexter. I would think that at least one of these guys that I had mentioned would be available. And then I guess if I need to make a fourth place or whatever it would be best available cornerback. But like I said, I want to hear from you as well. What do you got the Dolphins doing at 51, at 84? Drop them in the comments. And I'm going to be back, like I said, immediately after every Dolphin selection, dropping a video recapping that pick. So stay tuned to that. And we will see you later tonight, Dolphins fans, assuming the Dolphins end up with the draft picks that they have. But until next time, fins up.